said we would do a Council recommendation on ensuring framework conditions for Member States. And this is a Council recommendation. So we proposed a Council recommendation. The Council agreed in 2023, and they had to actually do these strategies until now. Economy enterprises, and all are working on them. I mean, some of them will be by the end of the year, but anyway, there is a lot of progress at national level. We've done a lot of training also, mutual learning between countries that were more advanced and countries that were behind. Because of course, from our point of view, it's important that the social economy.
Vice President Vigliotti, in recent year, as we know, the European Investment Bank has strengthened its commitment to the sector in the coming years.
First of all, thank you very much for the invitation to this gathering. And let me do two preliminary considerations. So the first is that actually we all know about the Draghi report, about competitiveness that we have to confront with America, with China, but not very often it's remembered that one of the issues within the report was that was the need to preserve the social
on accessing these funds, and we also secured an increase in the funds. So it's an increase of 20% compared to the Commission proposals for the next 2 years. And this is something very important because InvestEU has been used to improve also aspects related to social infrastructure that have been used towards building the kind of economy that we would like to see. And these figures show that well-targeted EU funding combined with the technical assistance can turn policy objectives into real social economy, social and economic impact, particularly on the elements related to the social, where the world's going, where we have a chance to make a better economy. So in 2015, at the time of the Paris Agreement, global annual energy investment stood at around $2 trillion, divided equally between fossil fuels and clean energy. Today, yearly investment has risen to $3 trillion, and yet fossil fuels still represent roughly 1/3 of that amount. The remaining 2/3, about $2 trillion, innovation as well, because that's where all these things can be kept together. So, even with this complex mandate, I think that Europe should still advance in critical areas for the green economy, such as the energy transition, for inclusion, addressing problems and issues like it.
Thank you very much. And now we have to run, so I leave the floor to Teresa Mascio Pinto, the President of Fondazione Finanza Etica. Thank you.
Model. A model centered on lending, economic soundness, and measurable social and environmental impact. This is the essence of ethical finance. When capital supports people, communities, and sustainable enterprises, it shapes the conditions for our lives: work, inclusion, access to essential services. Finance becomes a driver of cohesion. Institutions combining solid capital position, excellent credit quality, and sustained support for households, small business, and local communities. Second, it compared this performance with that of the wider banking system, support this sector, far above the levels seen in significant banks. These organizations, deeply rooted in their territories, respond to social needs and display remarkable resilience. Beyond the numbers, like experience hold communities together, a cooperative preserving a cultural space, a social enterprise offering care where the markets retreat, are not competitive goals, but phases of a single mission, lived daily, not proclaimed. Yet, the report also stresses the need for public financial tools to receive to social enterprises and cooperatives. Today, requirements often reflect the needs of a large firm. Above all, participatory governance, ethical finance and social economy actors in shaping European policies. This edition also appears in a shifting political context. Sustainability is increasingly overshadowed by short-term pressures, while proposals to label and production as sustainable threaten the credibility of Europe's society.
I don't think I have anything groundbreaking to say today, nothing more interesting than what's coming up later with the presentation of the report for sure. But the evidences about ethical finance that has brought us all here today have granted me a little space in, not as Maria, but as the representative of the young people interested on ethical finance. And taking this advantage of this moment, I would like to say hello. And also here is the youth, and here we are. Depending on the sector each of you come from, and it might be a bit rare to see young people engaged. I'm aware this happens in ethical finance sector and also social economy organizations. But yet I'm here.
The report concerning ethical banks is this one. In the social economy, there are over 4.3 million organizations for general and collective interest. They reinvest the majority of profits for the benefit of the community and are based on democratic and participatory governance models. And they are basically mostly in the agri-food, housing, social, health and educational services sectors. This, and because they are perceived as less reliable and they are perceived as entities that do not produce as much profits or earnings as the banks, let's say the mainstream banks, would wish. This is why these organizations are solid, at least as solid as mainstream banks. And this is actually the first part of the report. Now I've started from the end, but I come to the beginning. The first part of the report compares the numbers, and we can go to the table. To the table comparing the numbers. Here, this one. It compares the number of
guarantee platforms and the co-investment funds. The problem is often their connection. Complex tool, accessible only to large intermediaries and not always designed around the size and needs of social enterprises or smaller mission-driven banks can be a problem. This is why, when we talk about improving the impact of ethical finance, we are not talking about creating new, too rigid and centralized. We need greater proportionality, criteria that allow smaller financial institutions to access them and to transfer the benefits to local territories. National experiences such as the Social Economy Guarantee Fund in Spain or pilot projects in Italy, threshold and simplifying procedures. So first, guarantees. Second, capital. Many social enterprises do not only need loans, but also capital. Capital instruments such as equity and quasi-equity instruments to grow, innovate and digitalize. Reference framework for our economic system. How do you plan to ensure continuity beyond 2026, avoiding the risk that national measures for the social economy remain fragmented across different programs?
Hello, and I think all the actors recognize that there's been really a jump in recognition, awareness of the social economy in all the member states. And so we are now preparing a midterm review, which should come out in the first quarter of 2026. But the Social Economy Action Plan was adopted in the middle of, at the end of the COVID period, so resilience at the local level in particular was very important. Well, now we have war on our doorstep and discussions are all about competitiveness, so there are different kinds of priorities, and I think we need, and we also want to advance on some issues where perhaps we have been weaker in the previous round, or anyway they were not priorities. One of that is about measurement. We think we should have more data. We're working actually very well with Eurostat also to